We're reacting to the playoff. Let's go portaling with some players. And what can Santa do for you? Campus to Canton is kind of live. Not really, but whatever, right now. It's Felix Sharpe, Chris Moxley, and Matt Bruening for CampusToCanton.com. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everyone. Go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel to support college fantasy football. The content never stops around here. By the way, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers here by the end of January, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. How else can you help us? You can use promo code Campus2Canton for 15% off at Home Field Apparel for all of your college football apparel. And Underdog, promo code C2C for a deposit match of up to $250 if you're getting into any of those playoff contests or best ball contests next year. I'm sure that they will be doing another college football best ball tournament, and we'll have content for that. Gentlemen, let's get to a boring weekend in college football, the playoff game, round one. No game really close except for a brief portion of Texas versus Clemson. Matt, let me start with you. Notre Dame handles Indiana. What's your reaction to that other than, Jeremiah Love having an excellent game?
I mean, I think you could actually argue Jeremiah Love wasn't that good. Outside of his 98-yard run, what did he only finish with? A little over 100 yards rushing. I mean, he, against an Indiana team that everybody, at least, and I know Mox will probably go off on this in a minute, was talking about how didn't deserve to be there and all this other stuff. I felt like they actually handled that Notre Dame offense fairly well. The defense really, I think, dominated the game for Notre Dame, but I thought it was a better game than people gave credit for. I think if Indiana would have just been as aggressive passing the ball as they were at the end of the fourth quarter, that it might have been a little bit of a better game. But like, they were so, I don't know if it was the moment or what, but they were just very kind of, in my opinion, bland compared to what we've seen from them earlier in the year to start off that game. And I think that's what ended up hurting them.
They were running on first down, running on second down, and, putting Curtis Rourke in like every third down was like 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12, something like that. I mean, you're not going to go into the horseshoe and win playing some sort of conservative game plan like you're Michigan when you're Indiana. Especially talking all the junk that they talked before the game.
Yeah.
Chris, their game plan did not have a lot of bravado.
No, and it was the same thing against Ohio State. Cignetti talks the talk, and then he coaches like he has no interest in winning. He wants to keep it close. Like, that's how I felt he was coaching the game. And guess what? Indiana Notre Dame was the closest game of the freaking weekend. So everybody on Friday night talking about, Indiana doesn't deserve to be here. Lane Kiffin in the streets going, where's Ole Miss? Don't lose to freaking Kentucky. First of all, Lane Kiffin. Second of all, Indiana did not play great on offense, for sure. Notre Dame just had their numbers. They just are different caliber of athletes. They played okay on defense. Riley Leonard had a tip pass, right? Like, there are things there that I think if they break a little bit differently in the beginning, or maybe having a different conversation, like Rourke throwing that interception on their first drive really hurt because they got it at 39 and they were ready. I thought the discourse was my biggest takeaway from the game. Monday morning, everybody talking about how Indiana didn't deserve to be here. If you truly think that, one, I have a lot of issues with your thought process. Second of all, if you're saying that, you are just have an agenda, period. Like, you have an agenda and you're not interested in putting the most deserving teams in the college football playoff. Don't play the freaking games if you're just going to say 9-3 Alabama should be in. Alabama's loss to Oklahoma. Everybody wanted Bama in. Alabama's loss to Oklahoma was worse than Indiana's loss to Notre Dame on the scoreboard, yards per play, etc. I thought the discourse around this game was disgusting, to be honest. Like, it really pissed me off. That's my rant. And Lane Kiffin, quiet when Tennessee's getting their ass beat by Ohio State.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, we're obviously a fantasy football show. I think there are a couple of takeaways. One is more Indiana on the season. It's the fact that they're going to be aggressive offensively. Just imagine when they actually have, the talent to match that offensive system. You can see in the playoff game that they really went run on first down, second down, and then back shoulder fade to Elijah Surratt on the outside versus a true freshman cornerback. And they got a couple of first downs that way. And some didn't.
He needed one-handed catches to pull some of this stuff in, though. Like, Indiana was luck boxing their way at times, too. And the game was officiated really aggressively. Or, like, not aggressively, I should say, from the official.
Yeah, they let the players play. They let the players play. It's the playoff. They let the players play. I think the takeaway going into 2025 is potentially Tyler Cherry. I mean, I think I've said on this show that there were portions of his game, the size and way he moves, that reminded me of Drew Aller. And now Taven Jackson entered the transfer portal. And there's another true freshman on this team. I didn't realize it. Tyler Cherry didn't throw a pass this season. The other true freshman did. But it's going to be, with no Taven Jackson there, Curtis Rourke has to be done. Curtis Rourke has been playing since
he's out of
1998. He's out of eligibility. So who's going to be the starting quarterback? And let's not forget, Kirk Cignetti had Alonzo. Didn't he have Alonzo Barnett at JMU? Who was the quarterback that they had? Not Alonzo Barnett. Jordan McLeod. He had Jordan McLeod. He had Jordan McLeod at JMU, and so he's had the recent history has been outstanding for Kirk Cignetti. So who's going to take the reins in 2025? Let's cross our fingers that it's Tyler Cherry, because he's a really talented player, but that's something I'm paying attention to.
Do you think Indiana's even close to where they were this year, though? I mean, they're not winning double-digit games again. They got pretty darn lucky on their schedule, and you can say, oh, these schedules are so easy. Washington was in the playoff last year. Indiana scheduled them. Michigan won the national championship last year. Indiana had them on the schedule. Just because variance didn't break right doesn't mean it's a bad schedule. Like, willful ignorance.
Yeah, I mean the other quarterback on the roster is Alberto Mendoza. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't know who that is. So I would assume Tyler Cherry possibly wins that job. But you're talking about losing practically the entire wide receiver room, practically the entire running back room. I think it drops down to Kobe Martin is the only running back left in that room. McCulley's gone, Price gone, Surratt gone, Williams gone, Cross gone, all from the wide receivers. So you're not left with a lot there. I think Indiana's in a tough spot to be able to repeat what they did this year just because of that. Because at this point, you're talking about him, Cignetti having to go into the portal possibly to bring these players in. Right. No, I'm talking about, but doing it again, there's not much left in the portal at this point. A lot of those players, like there's a couple quarterbacks left, but with like bringing in a Devin Brown for 1 year, like, do you want to do that again at quarterback? You just want to go with Tyler Cherry? What running back available? What wide receivers? Like, there's not a lot of that top end talent anymore.
I do think Indiana has more money than maybe you would think they had. Like, they spent up in the portal to get some of these dudes last year. And I think Indiana...
They got 30 transfers. They had 30 transfers. 12 of them were for JMU.
So, of course, right? Like, Cignetti brought his Louis with him to Indiana. But I do think that Indiana has a competitive enough NIL program where they can try to run it back to some extent. Like, they got a healthy Curtis Rourke. We haven't seen healthy Curtis Rourke in like 4 years. Like, things broke pretty right for Indiana this year, and it probably won't happen again, but like, applaud the Hoosiers for even getting here. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, they were in it for Julian Lewis, one of the top quarterbacks in the recruiting class for a long time, and a lot of it was rumored because of the NIL that they could provide. So yeah, I have no doubt that they've got a pretty decent amount of money available.
And I don't know what their team total would be for next year, but if I set it at 7.5, I feel like taking the under on 7.5. But still an interesting landing spot an interesting story to track as far as Tyler Cherry's development. I mean, that is a player that has some high-end physical ability. Kirk Cignetti, good offensive scheming head coach. So let's see where they end up. Penn State, they dominated SMU, and really they scored what? Did they score twice defensively before they scored offensively? Kevin Jennings. I maintain that Kevin Jennings actually looked really good in the first quarter of this game, outside of the really bad turnovers. Chris, what was your reaction to Penn State getting this win at home against SMU?
I thought SMU started pretty well. Like, that first scripted drive was what they were moving the ball nice. That fourth down play happened. I thought the receiver should have made the catch. It wasn't a great throw. Jennings could have ran for it, right? A lot of things went wrong on that play. And Penn State didn't play their best game on offense for sure. Like, I thought Drew Aller had struggled a lot. They could run the ball pretty much at will. if they wanted to. Singleton was breaking off a lot of big runs, but I don't know. I mean, it's just a different tier of athlete, a different tier of coach, a different tier of everything. So, like Indiana, like congratulations on getting here, SMU, but it's a talented group, but you just saw it like a different team. You really did. And I thought Jennings was, the pick sixes were pretty bad. But he played not the worst game of the weekend, in my opinion.
Who played worse? Nico?
I thought Nico's passing performance was worse than
That's
Jennings.
fair.
But he was a better rusher, so whatever.
Yeah, I think up until that second pick six, I thought Jennings was fine. I wouldn't say he was great. I actually thought he did look really good on that first drive. And again, it comes down to, I agree with Chris. I think that I actually think it was a tight end he threw it to, not the wide receiver at the goal line where could have caught it, but was getting hit at the same time the ball got there. So how much you want to put on that? He could have ran for the first down, but I also get it from a gamer perspective. You see the first down, then he was wide open for a minute, go for the touchdown. Then all of a sudden you've got a 7-0 lead on Penn State. But those picks, and specifically the two pick sixes, were bad throws. I mean, he threw them right to the defender. It's not like they had to make some amazing catch on the play. The second one specifically, when he rolled out to the right, like I said, we were talking pre-show. I don't remember who the wide receiver was he was trying to throw the ball to. But I mean, that it was, and I remember they talked about it on the broadcast. It was the walk-on defensive back for Penn State was just standing right in front of Jennings. I mean, he threw it right to him. I don't know if it was just, a lot of big game moment. Jennings has not played a defense like Penn State or what happened there, but it definitely looked after that. They just looked defeated. They couldn't get their game together. It looked like it was over from that point. But I'll be honest, I actually thought Drew Allar played worse than Kevin Jennings against an opponent he should have steamrolled. And that is what I am really worried about and again, I don't want to keep giving him the excuse of this is James Franklin's fault because he doesn't have an explosive offense. But I mean, Drew Allar threw for 120 yards. It's just, I'm terrified.
It's not James Franklin's fault when you have no pressure. You have a wide receiver wide open on the middle of him and you just skip the ball to him. I'm like, why does he do that? I remember watching the spring game this year and I'm like, why does he just short hop super wide open wide receivers sometimes? Because there's no question to me that Drew Allar, if it comes from a physical talent standpoint, he's one of the best in the country, if not regardless of level of competition playing football. He can throw the ball through a barn. His size is 238 pounds, 6'5". I mean, so, he has everything that you want except for the consistency in playing the game. The other thing is when I watch him mechanically, I don't see anything necessarily wrong. So what do you do to tweak this player's game to get more consistent and more dynamic performances out of them? I have no idea. And I can't blame the wide receiver core when Drew Allar just misses a wide open wide receiver. It's that's absolutely on him. 13 for 22, 127 yards, 59.1% completion percentage, no touchdowns, no interceptions. And that's coming off the Big Ten championship game where he completed just 51% of his passes. I have Drew Allar. I've already started looking at my rankings for 2025. I have him at quarterback 4 behind Lenore Sellers, DJ Lagway, and Carson Beck, who I definitely with the injury is coming back. There's no question to me. So Drew Allar to me is a Anthony Richardson type prospect. Hasn't put it all together, but it's he's going to go in the top 15. I would bet so much. He's going to go in the top 15. Chris, you're shaking your head. We've seen these types of players.
He's not the level of rusher that Richardson is. He just isn't.
No, but from a physical, no, I'm not comparing him from a play style perspective.
But that's what you got from Anthony Richardson. You got that rushing ability. You don't really have that same.
You have everything with Anthony Richardson. You have the size, you have the athleticism, you have the arm talent, but you don't have the complete package. That's what I'm saying. Drew Allar is. Drew Allar has everything, isn't the complete package, and so some GM, some coach is going to be like, we can get the best out of him. He's going to go in the top 15. But man, if I was doing a draft right now, I wouldn't touch Drew Allar in the first 3-4 rounds, which means you just can't get him.
He's played so poorly at times, or just not good enough. How about that? He's not making mistakes as far as throwing picks, but he just isn't elevating this team at all. And it's 2 years now of him playing conservative. And then I see what you're saying too about this like mechanically it looks fine. I think his arm is really strong and he doesn't quite have touchdown. And so he is throwing it short because he doesn't want to airmail the throws. I think that's a big part of it. Plus the offensive coordinator saying, hey, you need to throw it short all of 2024. Like that's, or 2023. That's hard to get out of your head. I think year 3 will be pretty interesting for him.
That's where I blame Franklin, though. I mean, you go back to the press conferences last year about, I don't remember who the reporter was, but they brought that up to James Franklin live in a press conference. Like, Drew Allar's got one of the strongest arms in the country. Like, have you ever thought about just letting him rip it down the field? And Franklin's like, no, we never think about that stuff. Why do I want him to rip it down the field and throw interceptions? If your head coach is drilling that in your head every day, I think you are you're thinking about them. Like, I've got to make sure. And so when you take that extra second and then you let it go and it's in your head, you're not making the throws you usually make. Where if he had a guy like Kalen DeBoer, or I was going to say Nick Saban wouldn't allow that. Like,
I'd love to see him Sark's offense.
Sark, or I'll give Kirby some credit when Carson Beck those couple weeks threw 3-3 back-to-back. He's like, Carson Beck's our guy. We don't care. We're like someone like that is just going to have his back and be like, hey, you throw 3 interceptions game, cool. We'll make up for it. You'll get better next week. Where Franklin, I feel like it's just so much about that. That's where I blame Franklin. I'm not saying it's his fault, like you said, for dirting the balls, but I think he is part of the issue and why Allar has not become what we thought he could.
I mean, also, who's getting open deep for this team? Like you have to have a player open downfield to want to make some of these throws. Harrison Wallace ain't doing that. Khalil Dinkins ain't doing that. Like, it's Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren's a tight end. Like, he's like more than tight end. He's like a Swiss Army knife player. But they don't have the personnel to support him. They don't coach him, or they don't treat him as the athletic gunslinger type that he could be. I don't know. There's a lot wrong with the Aller situation. I don't know if it's going to get better.
Yeah. It's really frustrating to just watch a player that you know for a fact has everything that you need to be an elite player and is not getting to that elite level. Any thoughts about Matt, Chris, any thoughts about this Penn State backfield, Nick Singleton, whether or not he's going to be an elite player at the next level? I saw Katron Allen try to he got stuffed at the line behind his, and he tried to go left and right. And I'm like, Katron Allen, he's not. Katron Allen he's not very good going laterally.
I've said it a million times this year. An NFL head coach is going to love him, and they're going to give him 17 carries for 69 yards. That's Katron Allen. Nick Singleton might give you 11 for 11. Or he might, on that 12th run, break off an 80-yard run. He's just that explosive, right? I just don't think Nick Singleton, is a technician at the running back position to the point where you can rely on him to be your lead back, truly. Because I just don't know, outside of his athleticism, that he does anything that's game breaking. He's a good pass catcher, though. I will give him that. He's a good enough pass catcher to make a difference in that way. So get him in field, scheme him open. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing I'll look at for Singleton is what NFL team he lands with. Because I still think he's going this year. I think both him and Allen could both leave, especially with the way Allen's had a decent enough season that I think I kind of agree with Chris. Some team will fall in love with him for what he can be on the first and second down, and they're just going to draft him at the end of the third round. It's going to be good. But if so, they've had all these injuries this year. Who knows what's going to happen with CMC at this point with the torn Achilles? If a Singleton goes to a 49ers, or I thought was it not his Achilles that he blew? I thought it was his Achilles earlier in the year. I could be wrong. I know it was something with his right leg because I remember seeing it pop on the video. That's usually the Achilles.
If you go to Germany for a second opinion, it is a serious injury. That's kind of the bottom line of Germany.
Yeah. So if he goes somewhere in that Kyle Shanahan tree that loves to use the running back that way, I think he would be an absolute smash. But the thing is, I still think he's going to get drafted early day 2 because of his size speed combination. He's going to show up to the combine and test as likely the best running back in the class. And you know that some GM is going to fall in love with him and talk themselves into him early in the second round. So it's just really going to depend on where he lands. But I feel like when he came out and we wrote him up for the guide and talked about him in the ranking summits and everything and talked about possible first-round draft pick, I was like, I've got no doubts that this guy's going to smash at the NFL level. I have a lot of doubts now after what he's done for 3 years at Penn State.
I guess we really don't pay attention because I didn't realize that Christian McCaffrey had either a lingering Achilles injury or the injury that took him out this season. And the reason I say that is because I just traded for Christian McCaffrey. I just assumed I mean, I knew he was injured, but I didn't know the specifics. I traded, this is in a C2C league on the NFL side. I traded Ramondre Stevenson and Jonathan Brooks before Jonathan Brooks suffered his injury for Christian McCaffrey. So I'm hoping Christian McCaffrey's healthy to start next season. Let's move on here to Texas against Clemson. This was the most interesting game of the weekend, in my opinion, at least for a portion of it there when Clemson started to come back. Matthew, and I think the answer to this question is yes. Do you agree that Clemson's offense is worth buying into in 2025?
I think so. I mean, obviously, Moore had at least one touchdown catch. Adam Randall came back from the dead in this one. Was, I think, one of their better wide receivers.
Playing running back. He was playing running back.
Yeah.
He was playing running
man,
back.
Look, we got to see some of Bryant Westco as well. Like, again, my biggest fear with this is, okay, so that game, it just completely capitalized what Cade Klubnik's season. That first half was not good. Like, that first drive was great, right? Clemson drives right down the field like, oh, man, is Texas in trouble? And then after that, they kind of struggled. Texas takes a big lead on him going into halftime. You're thinking the game's over. Then the second half, they come out, and all of a sudden, Cade Klubnik's running around. He's throwing dots, and you're like, okay, like, where has this been? That is how his whole season has gone this year. Early in the season, struggled. Then all of a sudden hits this peak of, like, I think he was like top 2, top 5 at worst finishes in CFF for like a good 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season. And then toward the back end kind of fell off again. If they can get consistent play out of Cade Klubnik, assuming he comes back, I do think that this offense is worth buying into. I mean, if Adam Randall is going to be their starting running back, I mean, I think it's at this point it's fair to say that
I don't know that that's. I mean, he did. I don't know that he's making the switch to running back overall. I don't know either. I wouldn't hate it. I mean, Adam Randall's not getting on the field otherwise.
It seems like David Azamume is kind of done for. I mean, he didn't get a snap in this game. I don't even know if he's gotten any snaps this year. They are bringing in
Jay Haynes scores ACL.
Yeah, they have Gideon. I believe it's Gideon Davison coming in next year, as well as a highly rated running back recruit. So, like, I think whatever they do at running back, it's not going to be Azamume. But like I said, TJ Moore, I was trying to look it up. So 9 for 116 and 1. Bryant Westco 3 for 30. Like, and if Antonio Williams does come back, which I think he's had a good enough season, he could go to the NFL and probably get drafted day 2. But if he does come back, I think you could argue this is one of the best teams in college football next year if you can get Cade Klubnik to be consistent. So I would. I don't think you can buy Cade Klubnik after the season he had. I think people have now readjusted their value back to that. But I do think you possibly could get some of these weapons.
I mean,
go ahead.
Is there any player that you want to give less credit to than Cade Klubnik in the world?
I just gave him credit. What are you talking about? I knew you were going to take their shot.
It's a whole encapsulation of a season. Played all. He threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against Texas. Like,
yeah,
like,
you know.
Yeah, the first half, Clemson struggled to move the ball after the scripted drive. Absolutely. Yeah. His third quarter was awesome. Like, he was throwing dots. DJ Moore looked great. I mean, and he's certainly a rushing threat too. I mean, he's had how many games where he's just exploded on the ground? Yeah. He's made a significant leap versus where I thought he would be. To be totally honest, I this season was really impressive to me from Cade Klubnik. And I don't know that he's going to be a first-round NFL guy. I still doubt that. But him and Riley really found something. And now they have 2 receivers who are going to be a year older. TJ Moore and Bryant Westco are both, like, that might be the best receiver duo in the country. Yeah. Like, that's how good they are. I mean, it's wheels up for Clemson's offense in 2024. It really, or 2025. It really is. Like, I thought Cade played a pretty good game after that first half.
Adam Randall has been relegated to running back after being a highly touted wide receiver recruit himself because of Bryant Westco and TJ Moore, both of whom have had over 650 yards receiving as true freshmen. That might not sound like a lot. That's a lot. And I know with, Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith, that doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot. Both of them over 40 receptions. I prefer TJ Moore. I always have bigger body, more rare skill set, but Bryant Westco over there on the flanker, I mean, he's damn good in his own right. They just got to find a slot wide receiver. And the fact that, the core is going to come back between those 3, Klubnik, Moore, Wesco, maybe Antonio Williams. I don't think that he comes back, but if he does,
he's a round 2
I'm
pick in my opinion. I think he's worked his way into round 2. Like he's gonna be a better NFL player than he was college player.
I think, whatever people think of Xavier Restrepo, Antonio Williams has been that type of productive player in 2 less seasons. Xavier Restrepo is a 5th-year player. Antonio Williams just in his 3rd. Both slot wide receivers. And so, I think I don't know. I actually like Xavier Restrepo, but I like Antonio Williams too. And he's going to be one of those guys in like traditional dynasty that goes a little bit later that the college fantasy crowd is going to know, hey, this guy's actually talented. Should SMU have kept Preston Stone, who's now with Northwestern? Chris?
I don't know. Like they probably couldn't afford to keep him. Like he was going to ask for some sort of
I don't know
money.
why. I don't know why I went back to the Penn State.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out.
SMU game. I'm like, what am I doing here? Let's act like I didn't ask that question. I want to ask about Jadon Blue.
Okay.
Jadon Blue had the best game of his career, including he kind of squashed that comeback because Clemson scores late, and then they immediately give off, a 70, 80-yard touchdown.
77-yard touchdown.
Right after I
Exactly,
tweeted, please don't blow this. Please don't blow this.
Yeah.
Like a play later.
Jadon Blue strikes me as one of those guys who wants to get to the NFL by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Matt, I don't know. Did he do enough? Do you think he did enough in this game to be? I don't think he's not going day 2 to like be an early day 3 pick.
I don't think that he'll go day 2 either. It depends on if he continues to string these kind of games together. I mean, where they get Arizona State next week, who at times does struggle to stop the run as well. So if he can put up another 150 and 2, maybe that'll help kind of boost him up into like late round 3. But I think he's likely more of like locked into that 4th round draft capital. I think he's going though. I agree with you. I mean, for those people who don't know, I mean, sat out his senior year of high school because he didn't want to get injured to go into Texas. Didn't really do much his freshman year. I mean, I still to this day remember
short arm that
spring
game, yeah. Short arm, alligator arm that pass.
Austin talking about how much he loves Jadon Blue, and Felix like, nah, he's not it. Alligator arm this pass right in the middle of the field in the spring game. Yeah, it's a whole thing. So, but I think he's done enough to at least get drafted highly. And the thing I think that will help him is he is a good receiving back, and he does have a lot of speed. Obviously, we saw it on that 77-yard touchdown run. So I think if he gets into the NFL, he still will be, I think, a fantasy viable player, but you're probably looking more at like that back-end RB2 value than anything else, where we thought, coming out of, I'm pretty sure he ended up as our RB1 in our freshman supplemental guide that year, where we thought maybe could be a guy who leads a backfield. I think that dream's kind of dead at this point.
Do you remember Joe McKnight at USC?
Yeah.
He was like a player who was highly touted. It seemed like he only wanted to be in college to go to the NFL.
Yeah.
And then went to the Jets and did nothing. And I think he had a premature death, if I remember correctly. It was weird, something going on in his personal life. I'm not comparing Jadon Blue to that, but Jadon Blue's career trajectory and his motivation seem to be similar to a Joe McKnight level of player, at least in my opinion. Matt, Chris, I do want to come to you here in a second, but Matt, look into your crystal ball. What does this quarterback room look like next year? And tell me where are Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning going to be?
I think Quinn's probably going to the NFL. Whether deserved or not, I
4th round pick.
I don't think that he's played great this year. I think he's been.
Who's played better this year, Cade Klubnik or Quinn Ewers?
Oh, Quinn Ewers, fine. I'm going to stand on that. No, but I don't think at this point, there's no way that he comes back and Arch stays. I think they want it to be Arch, although I don't understand why. I guess he did throw or almost try to throw one pass. I've thought this whole time the Sark bringing Arch in just to run stuff is stupid, because if we all at home know that's what he's doing, I imagine the defensive coordinators know that's what he's doing. But I think Arch is going to be the guy next year. I don't think Quinn hits the portal. I think for whatever reason, I know Austin brings this up all the time, and I kind of agree with you, Felix, when you say this. I don't know what the NFL people are seeing, but there's a lot of NFL people in whatever it is that talk and all this stuff say that teams view him as a round 1 pick. I don't know I don't see it. I'll admit that. But
it's Woody Johnson probably.
If there's enough NFL GMs saying it, if I'm Quinn Ewers, why would I not go into the NFL and take my shot at that point?
It's all based on his prospect profile. That's all it is. Like, he has not done anything in college to warrant this outside of a really good first half against Alabama 2 years ago. Like, his arm is not what it was.
That's the problem,
he's
though.
Hurt.
I think that was the beginning and the end of Quinn Ewers. He has never looked the same from that destroying that shoulder. He has never looked the same from that. I think that was the beginning.
His arm just and
beginning and the end of our beautiful Golden Prince.
Yeah, I think the ankle injury really hurt him being able to generate power. He looked a little bit better, I think, in this game than he did near the end of the season, especially in that Georgia game. But like, Quinn Ewers hasn't done enough to warrant a first round pick.
I do want to look at their stats side by side. Since Matthew said that Quinn Ewers played better than Cade Klubnik this year. Quinn Ewers, to his credit, 2,800 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Cade Klubnik, 3,600 yards passing, 36 touchdowns.
Quinn missed 3 games. He missed 3 games. That might have made up that 1,000 yards right there. You never know.
Why? So people can't depend on us for objective analysis. Is that what you're saying?
What are you talking
Because you're going to have your little takes that you got to hold on to.
Your boy. Hey, I just said he's not a first round pick. How long have I said that? I think if you put
Quinn in unrelated news, we go to the Buckeyes.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly, Chris.
Isaiah Bond didn't play in this one. Yeah. Matthew Golden, I don't remember like a substantial play from Matthew Golden.
He had a couple of good catches. Yeah, he had 2 pretty big catches in that. Yeah.
Okay. I admittedly just, stopped paying attention. Actually, I was still watching in the second half. I just don't remember Matthew Golden plays. He's starting to get his fans around the NFL draft community too. Matthew Golden is a guy that we highlighted him since he was at Houston. So,
around 3.
Anything else? Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Anything else we want to cover on this game? All right, let's go to Ohio State blowing out Tennessee. This one was a snoozer also. I mean, Matthew, why don't you just wax about Jeremiah Smith? I mean, he is the best wide receiver in college football, and he showed as much very early in this game.
Yeah, it's crazy when you have just a completely athletic freak of a wide receiver out there and you don't throw him the ball against a defense that was missing their top 2 cornerbacks in Michigan a couple weeks ago. But hey, whatever. And now we see what happens when you play against Tennessee. No, he was great. I think you could argue already the best wide receiver in college football. It's going to be fun to see what he's able to do the next 2 years. I mean, I think they talked about that game, or it was on the screen at that game. And obviously you take this with a little bit of grain of salt because it's a little bit different when the types of like Chris Carter played at Ohio State, but Chris Carter set the true freshman wide receiver record. I believe it was like 600 something yards. And Jeremiah Smith is already over 1,000, almost at 1,100 yards on the season. He's going to get a couple more games to play. So I don't know that record will probably ever be touched again. I think players like Jeremiah Smith are very rare to come by, and so I'm just excited to see what he does for the next 2 seasons. But it was a great game for him. Great game.
Emeka Egbuka almost had a near reception, one-handed reception early in that game. It wasn't even a catch, and I was like, oh, made me open my eyes a little bit. Chris, what were your thoughts on Ohio State's dominant performance against Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was from the get-go, it was pretty apparent that Tennessee was outmatched. Like, Ohio State just has a better roster, like on pretty much like the entirety. Maybe you can argue like the edges are a little bit better for Tennessee, but like Nico was under pressure almost all night. The offensive line was really not holding up all that well. The receivers on Tennessee are honestly, I don't want to say they're terrible, but like, who's the guy that scares you on that roster right now? Because it's not Dante Thornton, who was hurt. It's not Brew McCoy. It's not Squirrel White, also hurt. Like, they haven't recruited the position well either. They keep missing on wide receivers. So you're not recruiting good receivers and developing them. You bring in Chris Brazzell, who had like 8 or 9 targets yesterday. Like, most of them were off target. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with Tennessee because every time they play a team that is better than them or like a little bit better than them, they get crushed. Like, if you can't run the Heupel system and not have difference makers at receiver, and they don't have. And Nico, I mean, he was not the problem yesterday. I thought he missed so many throws, though. Like, he kept them alive on the ground, for sure. but like he kept missing throws and overthrowing.
Nico is just like Drew Aller, at least. I mean, to me, I don't. There's no reason to have Nico ranked particularly highly. I have him as my quarterback 21 going into 2025, and I have Dante Moore ahead of him. I have him one spot ahead of.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I have him one spot ahead of Damon Williams, and I might put Damon Williams ahead of him.
I had a bunch of Tennessee fans. Like I was reading through Twitter and stuff today, and they're like, Nico played great yesterday. Like, it's not his fault. I'm like, yeah, okay, it wasn't his fault. Like, you have bums at receiver running out, or like true freshmen who barely even played. I get that for sure. Like, you can't have your quarterback completing like 40% of his passes. Yeah. Like 3.4 yards per pass attempt. Like, he had 104 yards on 31 passes. Like, I don't care how bad your receivers are. Like, you that's just like not good enough, man. I don't know. We didn't like him as much coming in to college.
Yeah.
That bowl game against Iowa, I think, opened a couple eyes. But if he's not playing Kent State, he's not playing Little Sisters of the Poor and throwing for four touchdowns and 500 yards, like, he's struggled.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference with Nico even in that was we talked about if they use him that way, right? The Iowa game, they used him as a rusher, and they did early on in the season, and they kind of moved away from that. We've always been kind of skeptical of him as a passer, and to the point you were just making about the passes, I mean, there's a couple on the sidelines where the wide receiver was wide open, and he just like threw it way too far ahead of the wide receiver. They're diving for the ball, can't catch it. I actually thought Nico played really well when they were running the hurry up offense. Like, that's when Tennessee really start to move down the field, and then they would stop. And I guess in fairness, Ohio State does have the best, or I believe as one of the top red zone defenses. So maybe that's why the drive stalled out. But Nico, I don't think looked particularly good in that game. And I do think a lot of it, as you mentioned, Chris, goes down to they just don't have the weapons at wide receiver. And again, though, I don't know what they're going to do. They're not really getting anybody in recruiting. I mean, unless you're going to go get Zachary Branch or something in the portal, yeah, I don't know how you're going to improve there either.
This is a team that would have benefited from.
Heupel just can't recruit, or he can't evaluate talent. Which, like, maybe it's both. Like, maybe he can't get good enough players in. But like the players that he does get in, they're not developing. They're leaving the program in a year. They're leaving a program in 2 years and not making an impact. So at what point is it a Josh Heupel problem? Because Tennessee is a top 5 NIL program. Like, that's not the issue. They brought in Nico and paid him a bunch of money. I don't know.
Tennessee is the type of team that I would have been excited if someone like Deshaun Stribling ended up in Tennessee. I'd be like, oh, that would have caused me to raise my eyebrows. But, you know, I don't know. Back to the drawing board. There, you know, is there a coach outside of like Zach Kitley who what they did 3.5 years ago is like carrying their players' value here in 2024, 2025?
He had 2 good receivers, right? He had Jalen Hyatt and he had Cedric Tillman. Those dudes could get open, right? Like those dudes, and there were 2 different types of archetypes.
But we've elevated Squirrel White, Miles Price, Brew McCoy, Chris Brazzell. I mean, all of these guys and have gotten. They can't
get open. If you cannot get open running this system, you're not gonna move the ball. Like, the system is not hard to defend when your receivers are bad. Like, they need to be in tandem. You need good receivers to run this offense. Like, it's gimmicky, but because dudes can get open. Like, Ohio State can defend this. Georgia can defend this. What's Heupel's best win at Tennessee? It's Alabama 2 years ago. Yeah. Like, he just doesn't win because teams can defend this system. I don't know. Tennessee's never going to win the national championship with like their current assembly, and Heupel can't recruit well enough. I don't know. The Tennessee game really, they were just not competitive.
Yeah.
Is it blasphemy to say that this was a bad weekend for the sport? This weekend did not help grow the sport. It did not bring interest to the sport. Yes. After this year where we had the video game, we had Underdog add its thing. I mean, there was some real momentum around college football with the 12-team playoff. And this weekend, I mean, even if you look at the ratings, I mean, the weekend it was bad for college football. This weekend was bad for college football.
All the games were behind both NFL games from yesterday in terms of ratings. So I actually have 2 thoughts on this. The playoff is going to expand again to 16, probably in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
How many teams do you think on a yearly basis can win the national championship? And is it more than 6? Because I don't think it is. The playoff is not built to find the best team. The playoff is built so that ESPN, ABC, like same company, I guess, Disney, all of these companies can make more money because you have a bigger game and you could sell it as such, right? That's why we are expanding the playoff. We're not trying to create a better product for the sport. That is just simply not true. And the people who make these decisions are similar, like private equity people who squeeze as much money as they can and toss that shit aside. The power brokers, decision makers, people with the hands at the levels of power don't care about college football. They don't care about the tradition. They don't care about what makes it unique. They don't care about any of that. They want to turn it into the NFL. They want to desanitize it. They want to pack Jerry World with the 2 biggest brands, which is why I was surprised SMU even got into the playoff, because I thought they would still put Alabama in, because that's all they freaking care about. They just care about making money. They don't care about anything else at the highest level of the sport, which is why we're going to expand again, and it's going to be a worse product. And you could say
it's not just the money's fault, though. You know who I blame? I blame Chris Peterson and that 2007 Boise State team that upset Oklahoma with the Statue of Liberty play. Because ever since then, there's been this romanticism. Oh, what if, this team played that to this G5 team played Alabama. We just don't know if they can. We don't know if Boise State is going to get mud stomped by Penn State. Penn State's not even good. Penn State's not even good. And then we're going to just see, but I think that since that game, I'm pretty sure that there are some other games in my lifetime, but specifically since that game, Chris, you were probably 1 year old. Since that game,
I watched the game. I remember watching the game.
It's been romanticized. It's been romanticized. What could a lower ranked team do against the Blue Blood? So now we have SMU playing Penn State and, and Indiana playing Notre Dame. Like, there aren't that many teams that, like you said, Chris, I'm agreeing with you. Like you said, there aren't that many teams every single season that can compete for the national championship. And because of games like that Statute of Liberty games, people think any given Saturday, the upset can happen. The 4-team playoff was boring, and the 12-team playoff is not getting off to a great start.
I mean, 19 of the 30 4-team playoff games were double-digit wins. Blowouts have existed for a long time in the sport in the playoff era. Like, they just have. And I don't think that's necessarily, I think you got some really bad variance all 4 of these games not being that close. Like, I think that's pretty bad variance. But blowouts happen all the time in the playoff. Like, that's not a surprise to me. I think I think there's a lot of overreaction to Indiana being in, SMU being in, like Tennessee, the worst loss of all of them, right? So I think you're going to see in the upcoming years, teams like Indiana, teams like SMU get less of a benefit of a doubt. Oh, we should have just put in Alabama. We should have just put in Ole Miss. We saw the results. Why are we going to do this again? Why are we going to run it back? I think that's so much worse for the sport because both of those teams deserve to be in. Yeah. And I think this whole discourse and conversation that we're even having is like execs, like media execs are licking their chops. Like, oh man, even the public thinks Alabama should be in. We can get that bigger brand. And how many people want to see SMU and Indiana in the playoff? Like, in terms of general public, not a lot. Like, Alabama's going to draw a lot more numbers. So they're excited that all this discourse is happening. They're happy, but they don't care about the tradition of college football. Just, I don't know. And the fact that these were all blowouts at home, oh, we got to move this game back to neutral sites. Like that.
No, that's the part that needs to stay.
They won't do that.
I agree.
I love seeing that's the part that needs to stay.
I don't know.
They won't do that. They'll leave it home. They'll leave home. I think they will change up. There's already been talks about that. I think they'll change up the automatic bids and everything.
Which you absolutely need to change the bids.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think it was a bad weekend, but I don't think it was a weekend we hoped it was going to be. A bunch of close games. We wanted an upset to kind of prove that they were doing it right. And I agree with Chris. They're going to eventually expand this, right? Like we'll move to probably 16, I think is what everybody thinks will finally be I agree with Chris. There's only 6 teams, maybe 7 that can win the national championship every single year, but that's changed from what we've seen over the past couple years. I would say a couple years ago, you're talking about only 3 teams could win a national championship, maybe 2. Why is that changing? Because of NIL, because of the way everything has been expanding into these super conferences. The talent is becoming more and more spread out. So I think that number will begin to grow. Now, I don't know that it's ever going to get to 16 teams if we get to a 16-team playoff, but I do think it can get to 10 or 11 teams at some point where that could win the college football playoff. Because let's just be honest here. Let's just say Michigan had Bryce Underwood on their team, and he's as good as we all think he is. Well, that adds an 8th team right there that could make it, that could maybe win a national championship. They've got a good defense, got a good enough defense. Like, there's small tweaks you can make on multiple teams in that top, whatever, 15 that I think would instantly make them national championship contenders. So I think that list continues to grow. I don't think it was a great weekend for the sport. I actually think it's a week and a half away, I guess, New Year's Day and New Year's Eve could actually be a very good day for the sport, because I think all 4 of those games, I think all 4 could be good. I mean, I do think Ohio State, Oregon will be a good game. I disagree with Felix that Boise State's going to get stomped. Penn State's been run on all year. That's the one thing Boise State
by
can
G5 team.
They did it all over Oregon. Why can't they do it again against Penn State?
Oregon's defensive line is not nearly as good as Penn State's.
Maybe not, but we'll see. I guess we'll see.
Here nor there, they're going to beat Boise State. Boise State doesn't have the same dudes that Penn State does. It's just like Arizona State's could get run out of the building against Texas.
We'll see.
Like,
I thought so. I think so too.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
This is avoidable if you change the playoff seeding system and don't give automatic bids to conferences. There's no reason Arizona State and Boise State should have a bye. No reason. Just do the top 4 teams in the country. Like, you're actively making the product.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no reason Oregon should have to play Ohio State after going undefeated the entire season. They should be playing Boise State or whoever this weekend.
They absolutely should. But I liked what Dan Lanning said. If you missed his quote about it, he said, we have to play the best teams to win the national championship anyway. Let's do it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Dan Lanning's
going to be too. Yeah,
Dan Lanning's the best coach in college football. So I love Dan Lanning. I might be rooting for Dan Lanning on Tuesday. We'll see. But, it's just – it's interesting. I don't think it's going to be I think maybe this year will be bad, but let's also be honest. A lot of people thought that first year of the 14 playoff was bad because a 3rd-string quarterback at Ohio State won the national championship.
I mean, we saw. Like, I just said it. Like 2/3 of these games are double-digit blowouts in the CFP 4-team era. Like, they just happen. That's not necessarily an indictment on the sport, but like you could see the talent disparity. And I think changing the playoff,
but
system,
you
have Arizona State play Boise State.
I mean, we're in the college football business. We want the games to be good. We want the playoff to bring more eyes to the sport. And right now, there's really no reason for that to be the case. Chris, I think Texas, Arizona State, Penn State, Boise State, those could be blowouts. And Arizona State and Boise State got bye weeks. Like, what are we – the teams that got bye weeks are going to get dump trucked by 10+? I mean, it's just – I don't know.
The current system – does not make sense and does not foster the best games. Arizona State should be playing Boise State this weekend. How awesome would that game have been?
That'd be a great game. That'd be a great game. Great game.
And then you have to play a team who is then coming off for a week of rest, deservedly so, because they were a top 4 team in the country. Like, that makes sense. Make that tweak to the system. Like, improve the product. We are so critical of the product and the way that it's been presented because we love the sport so much. And I think that criticism is only to be positive. Like, we love college football, so we want it to be better, and we think that it could be better. And I think the media, the money around the sport is actively making the product worse.
All right, I want to move on here to some actual player takes. Matthew, do you want to drive this segment, reacting to players in their transfer portal, either entering the transfer portal or their destinations? I don't know what you had intended for this segment.
So I've got a bunch of the players here. Some we've talked about throughout some of the shows. So we didn't put all the big names on here, but players who have chosen their destinations here in the transfer portal. So what I want from you guys is just kind of like a keep, trade, or cut edition here of these players. So you tell me what you would do if you roster this player and they've now chosen their destination. We're going to start with the one that happened during the games yesterday. Austin, I'm going to give this behind the scenes, criticize me for even putting a video out about this. Maybe because I think it hurt him a little bit because he loves Preston Stone so much. Preston Stone commits to Northwestern, of all schools. Felix, you keep, trade, cutting him. I mean, what are your thoughts?
What you're supposed to give us when we play keep, trade, cut, you're supposed to give everybody 3 players, and they decide whether,
I don't want, there's not a.
No,
I'm
cutting.
three quarterbacks.
There's no Preston Stone, probably not an NFL guy or high-end NFL guy, and not going to be a fantasy viable player at Northwestern. Get him out of here. Sorry, Preston Stone, but I have no interest in Preston Stone anymore. Who's a Dallas Paris Episcopal guy too, I think, if I remember correctly.
He
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what he's not going to be fantasy productive at Northwestern. Like, who's he throwing to, right? And the offense is kind of weird with Zach Luan anyway. But what I will say is Preston Stone, when SMU's running it up on Navy and they don't take him out, they're up by like 30 or 40. Preston Stone gets injured. Since then, he hasn't been the same player. Like, kind of ruined his career just to run the points up. And I don't know that he wanted to stay in the game. I think that put that on the coaching staff. But ever since that injury, he just hasn't been the same. He messed up his knee. And I mean, he looked bad when he played this year.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm cutting him, as much as I hate to say that, because we had such high hopes for our sweet Prince there. Ricky Collins, who's a quarterback that I really liked in last year's class, dual threat quarterback who can fire the ball down the field, landing at Syracuse. Chris, you keep, trade, or cutting him?
If he starts, I mean, I'll hold on to him and then see what happens. You know, if he wins the job. He's an interesting player, and this offense was like crazy skew pass heavy neutral game scripts, and they want to chuck it all over the field. They're willing to run it up on teams too. Like, they'll put margin up if they can. I like the job Fran Brown is doing, and I like the way the offense is constructed for a quarterback. So yeah, I'll for sure keep him.
Yeah, I'll keep him too. It's not because I know anything about Ricky Collins, but specifically the offense. I thought that Syracuse would have been the perfect destination for Darian Mensah. I was hoping Darian Mensah would end up at Syracuse, but really any guy that they bring in there with the way they run their offense. I think Aronde Gadsden could come back. I don't know about Pena or
Gadsden's
the
in
other.
the Shrine Bowl.
Oh, he's in the Shrine Bowl. Okay, he's not coming back. But I mean, that's a spread system playing indoors with a head coach on the rise. Yeah, I'll buy Ricky Collins, who's probably not rostered anywhere. By the way,
no,
like he's not rostered.
I roster him on all the leagues that I'm in because I still believe in play. But a lot of that was to him being at LSU. I love the Mike Denbrock system. But yeah, I think this is a great spot for him. I'm keeping him. This is an intriguing one to me because he's a guy that I talked about earlier in the season. Ended up having a very good year with Nevada, and that is quarterback Brendan Lewis, who transferred to Memphis, which right now has a wide open quarterback room. Seth Hennigan's gone. Right now they have Harris Boyd. I like the true freshman they brought in last year, Arrington Maiden, but I don't know that he's ready to start. But again, Brendan Lewis can run. He's not the greatest passer. Like, he's not Seth Hennigan in passing the ball, but it's been an intriguing offensive system. Felix, what are you doing with him?
And I've watched a little bit of Brendan Lewis. I want to say versus New Mexico this year. I can't remember, but I mean, I've seen him play. I am buying as maybe the last pick in a supplemental draft. 15th round pick as a viable quarterback with some quarterback 2 upside, and plus he's a dual threat. So I'm buying, but I'm not spending a lot on him.
I don't know. I don't think he's very good. If you want me to be honest, I don't know if he's even going to win this job at Memphis. I think someone else could go in there and beat him out, but maybe he does. So yeah, he's probably worth drafting. I don't know. The Kansas system that, like, now they have all these offshoots, right? So like Nevada's running the Kansas stuff this year. Remember how good it made Jalen Daniels look? Like, I'm not sure Jalen Daniels is all that good either. Yeah. So when you remove him from that system, I'm pretty interested to see what he's going to look like, because I don't like that. And this is really the best that Memphis could do. Like, Memphis is backed by FedEx money. Like, they kept Hennigan on like a pretty big NIL deal. So I don't know. I would think they could do better. Maybe they plan on doing better. Maybe they're waiting for one of the playoff teams to come loose. I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, I right now, if he's going to be projected to be the Memphis starter, I'm keeping him, and I might even trade for him if I can. Because, again, he finished as a top 25 fantasy quarterback last year.
I'm trading him away. I forgot that was an option. I'm trading him away. People will buy it. I'm trading him to Matt.
Yeah. I'll take him. All right, so just to make this easier for Felix here, I wanted to get those out of the way so we have an even number of quarterbacks here. So, the keep trade or cut on these 3 quarterbacks: Caden Salter going to Colorado, Dylan Lonergan going to Boston College, and Danny O'Neal going to Wisconsin.
All right, I'm never buying a Bill O'Brien player, so we're absolutely going to cut. So we're cutting the Bill O'Brien guy.
Gotcha.
We're cutting Dylan Lonergan, and then it's Danny O'Neill at Wisconsin or Caden Salter at Colorado. I think I'm keeping Salter just because of the history. I mean, he's been a quarterback one. I think he was the quarterback one overall in 2023. Is that right? 2023 is the quarterback one overall, and he's going to be in a system that relies heavily on the quarterback. And he's got more dual threat ability than Sure Sanders has. So could we see a return to him being a quarterback one again? I don't think that's out of the question. That's easy. And then I'll trade Danny O'Neill.
Chris, I'm going to cut Danny.
Chris has the same answer. He's got the same exact.
No,
answer.
I'm cutting Danny O'Neill because I think Danny O'Neill just isn't very good. Like, I don't know what possessed him to enter the transfer portal because his highest QBR on the year was like 63 against Hawaii. And other than that, it was like below 50 most of the games. Like, he did not have a good season as a true freshman. He just didn't. Took a ton of sacks, wasn't pushing the ball downfield. Like, I don't know. I don't think he's going to start at Wisconsin. They also brought in Billy Edwards, right? So I think he's the backup. So I'm cutting him.
Who's liked Billy Edwards for a while?
We're about to talk about Billy Edwards. So
I'll keep the Lonergan going to BC. Like, he's probably starting there. Maybe you got a little bit of value. I don't know. And then
also, you're going to trade Caden Salter?
Yeah, I don't think he can throw the ball. So, and I don't think Colorado really wants to establish the run. So, like, I think there's a chance that Salter gets benched.
So,
his season passing was so horrendous. Like, it was really, really a struggle.
I know this is going to completely come off as like Austin Nace is just like poison the well here, but I actually kind of agree with Chris. I was going to trade Caden Salter because I just don't think he has the year that Shedeur had. And if they do continue to pass the ball, I kind of agree with Chris. I think Salter could fail like he did this year, and a decent offensive line, but like, who's he going to be throwing the ball to? I know they just added someone in the portal, and I can't remember at the wide receiver
Joseph
position.
Williams.
No, not Colorado. They didn't add Colorado. Colorado didn't get Joseph Williams. He went to
Utah.
No,
they added, did he? When did this happen?
Today.
Wait a minute. What? What?
Well, while you're looking at that and proving that, I'll just say.
I thought he flipped. I was about to say,
it's Utah. But I think that you can get a lot for him because people will believe he's going to go in there and be Shedeur Sanders. Bill O'Brien was the one who recruited Dylan Lonergan to Alabama to begin with. I actually liked Lonergan.
That's a different Joseph Williams. It is a Joseph Williams. It's a different Joseph Williams. That's a recruit, a quarterback. It looks like.
Gotcha.
I transfer portal on 3 right now. Tulsa transfer wide receiver Joseph Williams has signed with Colorado per Pete Nikos.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Joseph Joe Williams. He has Joseph WQB1 as his thing because he was a all right.
He was a quarterback.
Let's get ourselves together. We need to hit the breaking news sound. Hold on.
Do we have to? Can we wait till we get to the wide receivers?
No, we need to. And we've got breaking news. Joseph Williams from Tulsa, who we've talked about late here on Campus to Canton Live, a dynamic true freshman, contested catcher, athletic kid who played quarterback, playing wide receiver. It looks like he committed to Utah, but now flipped his commitment, Chris Moxley, to Colorado. We're just finding out about this. Chris Moxley, what's your reaction?
I love it. I think he's a good player. I really do. I was really impressed with him as a true freshman. He stood out at Tulsa because like Tulsa doesn't really have like real talent on the outside, but he was good. He's a player. And I love he's going to a pass happy offense that with potentially quarterbacks who can throw him the ball, and they want to throw a lot too. So I think he could be a productive season, losing a ton of talent out of that room too. I mean, they're losing their top 4 receivers.
Yeah. Yeah, so now
I love the Utah landing spot because you got Devin Dampier there, and Devin Dampier was productive with Luke Wysong. Joseph Williams, much more talented, different player than Wysong. And if you're going to run the ball and bring safeties down, and that leaves less attention to Joe Williams, he wasn't going to get the volume that he'll now get at Colorado. But I thought he would have been an efficient player at Utah. At Colorado, he's going to be he's easily going to be the #1 wide receiver. This is a great landing spot for him.
Yeah, him, Draylon Miller, and Omarion Miller should be an interesting wide receiver core.
It's not a bad group. Even though you're losing your top 4 from 2024, that's a good group.
Yeah. Still doesn't change my answer on Canton Salter, though. I'm still trading him. I'm keeping Dylan Lonergan. Because, again, Bill O'Brien recruited him. I actually think he's a good player. I like Dylan Lonergan. I was the highest of him on the recruiting team when he joined the team. And then, I'm cutting Danny O'Neal. I agree with Chris. I thought he was a perfect fit for Sean Lewis's offense. It made no sense to me on why he went to the portal to go to Wisconsin, of all places. So, I don't think that's a good move. Billy Edwards to Wisconsin, John Mateer to Oklahoma, and Luke Kromenhoek to Mississippi State. Chris, keep, trade, cut.
I'm going to cut Kromenhoek mostly because I like the other two better. To be honest, I don't really want to cut any of these guys. Billy Edwards, I was kind of more impressed with than I thought I would be this year. I didn't really think he could sling it, and he kind of did. I don't really know what Wisconsin wants to do on offense, so that concerns me a little bit. And Kromenhoek might just step in Mississippi State and throw for 3,500 yards because it's the Jeff Lebby offense, and that's all they're going to do, and the defense stinks. But I mean, John Mateer's got to be the buy. Wait, keep, trade, keep. I want to keep John Mateer. I think it's a step up in competition for sure, but he was just quarterback 1, keeping his office coordinator. Hopefully Oklahoma brings in a couple more receivers. We talked about Giovanni Gibson here last show. They got him on Oklahoma. I think that's a good match. Mateer's just dynamic. Best player of this group for sure.
Felix?
I'm sitting here trying to get the news on the website.
Oh, my bad.
Who are the 3 players?
You keep, trade, or cut John Mateer at Oklahoma, Billy Edwards Jr. at Wisconsin, or Luke Kromenhoek at Mississippi State.
Who did Mississippi State just get also? They
Nobody.
let Van Buren go. Oh, and Jackson Arnold is not going to Mississippi State?
He went to Auburn. He went to Auburn.
He's going to Auburn. So I'm going to
Kromenhoek.
I think I'm gonna give me, who are the other 2 again? I'm sorry.
John Mateer and Billy Edwards Jr.
I'm a fan of Billy Edwards Jr. and I have been since that game, that blowout against Michigan, where they took Talia Tagovailoa out of the game and they put Billy Edwards Jr. in the game in the 4th quarter, and he went straight down the field in the big house and threw a touchdown pass, and demonstrated a lot of good things in that game. I'm gonna cut Billy Edwards Jr. I'm going to trade John Mateer just because of his name value, and I think I'm going to keep Luke Kromenhoek because of his talent in the system that he's in. I mean, the college fantasy people will tell you, Chris, what percentage of value is related to system? It's a large percentage here, and Kromenhoek would be in a good system there from Mississippi State. So give me just like Michael Van Buren was. Michael Van Buren, excellent, and Kromenhoek is probably more talented of a player than he is. So give me that's there. Yeah, I'm keeping Kromenhoek, cutting Edwards, trading John Mateer.
All right, get back to your story. I'll go to Chris first on this next one. I agree with Felix, though, because I think you can get the most from Mateer at this moment. And I do have some questions about what he will be at Oklahoma against SEC defenses. Me and Austin talked about it when this news broke. They do not have an easy schedule next year. They play all the big name schools in their outside of a couple games early on in the season. So I'll keep Luke Kromenhoek going to Mississippi State there with Lebby, trade John Mateer, and I will cut Billy Edwards Jr. Moving on to the running backs, Chris, we'll start with 3 that I think all at least intriguing landing spots here. Ahmad Hardy, going to Missouri, Ishmael Mahadi going to Arizona, and Kanye Udo going to Arizona State. Who are you keeping, trading, and cutting?
Talk about culture shock.
Yeah.
In terms of going from the Army to Arizona State for Kanye Udo. I am going to, and I like all 3 of these players a lot. I am probably going to cut Ahmad Hardy. That's a really ULM to Missouri is a really big step up in competition. And I think he's a good player, but I don't know that he's SEC level, 1,000-yard back. I will trade Mahdi because the way they use these Arizona backs is pretty valuable. We just saw that this year with Conley. And I think he's a pretty good player, right? Texas State to Arizona is less of a jump than ULM to Missouri. And then I am buying Kanye Udo here. I like the fit. I think he's a really good running back. And Kyson Brown, I thought he was going to be the RB1, but I think Udo's much better. So that's a really exciting fit. And he's going to get a lot of work in this offense. I don't know that he's going to catch the same number of passes that Scadaboo did, but he'll bulldoze on the ground. I really like him.
Chris, you said it's a big jump, but I mean, Cody Schrader went from what, Division II or Division FCS to Missouri. He had an excellent season. Nate Noel went from the G5 to Missouri. He had an excellent season.
ULM is so bad.
I'm going to trade Ahmad Hardy because he's a name and I could probably get a lot of value for him. Ishmael Mahdi, I just don't want the Arizona program on my team, so I'm going to cut him. And then Kanye Udo, we don't know if he can catch the ball. What is he, a sophomore? I think he's got 2 years remaining.
No. He played. He's a sophomore this year. He played as a freshman, redshirt freshman, or a freshman. So he might be listed as a redshirt freshman. He's played for 2 years.
So he's got 3 years remaining if he redshirted.
Let me double check. I know for sure.
2 or 3 years remaining on an offense that's going to be dynamic in the Big 12. They've got a lot of good returning pieces there, except for the running back position. So give me Kanye Udo, not only to have like a really good fantasy season, but he is ideal size, like 5'11", 205, 210, somewhere in there. He has a good enough season. You're talking about a guy who people will be talking about his draft capital after the 2025 season. So this is an easy one for me. Well, I should say that this is a difficult one from a talent perspective because all of these guys are really even. This is the hardest question you've asked. But Hardy, I'm going to trade him because he's the name. I don't want Arizona on my team, and then that leaves me with Udo, who I'm keeping.
Yeah, I'm with Felix there. I would do the exact same thing. So Udo only has 2 years. He played 10 games as a freshman, so he didn't redshirt, so he's got 2 years. But I still think he's a guy who could play 2 years in that Arizona State offense. He brings a lot, in my opinion, like what Cam Scadaboo did. The only difference is I actually don't know that Udo's a good receiver, so I don't know they will throw him the ball a ton. But I mean, he's like 6. Can't remember what he's
6
foot
like 215.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He's got
small.
really good. Yeah, he's got really good lateral agility though, and is not afraid to run dudes over. So I think he will run with like the aggression that Cam Scadaboo did in that offense. So I would keep him as well.
Can I back up a little bit to Joseph Joe Williams? I want to say something. I actually reached out to him earlier this week or last week to get him on the show. Reached out to him and didn't get a response. Maybe this is why. Maybe he was still getting recruited. And now I definitely want to have him on the show now that he's at Colorado.
All right, a couple more, and then we will get out of here. Quentin Joyner to Texas Tech, Dante Dowdell to Kentucky, and Kewan Lacey to Ole Miss.
Ooh, man, this is a hard one too. Chris, you can go first.
Give me Joyner to Texas Tech. I think he's the most talented of the group, and I also think that he is stepping into a role where, I mean, how many carries are vacated by Taj Brooks, right? A lot. And I think he can catch the ball too. So it's a role that is really valuable and has been valuable for fantasy for quite a while now. So I like the fit a lot. And, he has a connection to this program. I believe he went to the same high school as Taj Brooks. Kind of interesting. I think our friend Josh Chevalier had that. Interesting fit. I like it a lot. Give me Kewan Lacey to Ole Miss. I think it's notable that Ole Miss went out and targeted him to be their backup or their back. The room got pretty thin this year after Parrish got hurt, and Parrish kind of struggled in conference play too. So I think Lacey's a better player than Harris is. So good fit. I want to trade for him. I don't know. Trade. Well, no. Gosh, man, this is tough because I like both Joyner and Lacey a lot, and I don't like Dowdle. But I think people like Dowdle, so I want to trade Dowdle to get more value.
So you got to cut Lacey.
So I guess I'm gonna have to cut Lacey, even though I don't want to as much. I don't think he's quite as valuable as Joyner. But I don't think Dowdle's like all that. Like that's like a nothing burger to me. I don't know.
He's not that good, but I think he fits perfectly what Kentucky loves when they're running backs.
He absolutely does. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Do you think he's better than the other backs that are currently there?
Yes, I do. I mean, the only reason he wasn't that good in Nebraska this year is because they were sharing the ball between 3 players, but every time they gave him the ball, he looked good. I watched a lot of Nebraska this year. So, I think all 3 of these are great landing spots. You mentioned Ole Miss. There's nobody in Ole Miss's room right now. I just did a video on Keywan Lacey. Everybody else hit the portal. It's just Ulysses Bentley, and I'm pretty sure he's out of eligibility. So it might literally be just Keywan Lacey there as their running back, which is why I would love to keep him, because I think he's so explosive in what they do with that. But I think you have to keep Joyner, because I think he goes right in and is Taj Brooks and just does that from a receiving and a rushing standpoint. So I'll keep Brooks, trade Dowdell, and cut Lacey. But I would love to keep all 3 if I could.
I was expecting Dowdell. Like I watched Nebraska this year, but like he never really popped to me. I was expected to go to his player page and see like 6 yards per carry the way you were describing him. It was like 4.3 yards per carry.
And Christopher, he had double-digit carries against Colorado, 20 against Illinois, 14 against Ohio State, 10 against Wisconsin, 13 against Iowa. Did not record a 100-yard rushing performance this season, including his 20 carries against Illinois.
So I figured out why he was looking so good, because when he played Northern Illinois, he ran for 9.2 yards per carry. Against UTEP, 6.9 yards per carry. Against USC's defense, 6.5. So that's pretty good. Everything else, he's like under 3 or under 4. Like, I don't know. I just don't think he's very good. That's where I land on him. But people are excited. They really are.
Felix, what you got?
There's no world in which I'm cutting Quentin Joyner, so he's absolutely being kept. Dowdell, I thought that he would be the one that I'd trade, but I guess it's Lacey looking at his stats here right now. I do think that Kentucky is the perfect spot for a 2-down grinder. It always is. That's why we liked Chip Trainium last year. By the way, he's in the transfer portal too, right? Has he landed anywhere, Chip Trainium?
He is, yeah.
What
he is not.
he
is not.
He's gonna. I mean, I've got to think
going
he's gonna
back
play
to
running back again.
Maybe.
Going back to linebacker. Go back to Ohio State. Yeah. So I'm gonna trade Lacey and cut Dowdle, keeping Joyner. That's an easy one.
Okay. So the last 2 wide receivers, real quick. Deuce Robinson to Florida State is not 100% confirmed, but it's believed where he's going. Barry and Brown to LSU and Micah Hudson to Texas A&M. Chris, who are you keeping, trading, and cutting?
Is Deuce Robinson going to play baseball at Florida State?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Whatever. I think he is, and he's going to bat like 140.
100. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to bat like 100. So I am going to cut Deuce Robinson. Whatever. I am going to trade Barry and Brown because I think people are higher at Barry and Brown than I am. I don't know that Barry and Brown is a difference maker at the wide receiver position. I just don't. Like, we haven't seen it at Kentucky. He's limited in what he can do. He's obviously an explosive returner, right? Like, he's one of the best specialists in the country. That's who he is. I don't know what he's going to do in this offense, to be totally honest, from a getting open deep, because that's not really how Kentucky used him. I don't know. He's a really weird player for me to get a handle on. But I am going to keep Micah Hudson because I still think the talent is there. And A&M certainly paid up for him if they wanted him. So they believe in him. And, I know Joey McGuire didn't. Joe McGuire didn't even know his freaking name, but I still like Hudson. I still think the talent is there. And he was hurt in spring, got a slow start for fall, and he had 3 okay receivers in front of him and a good tight end. So I don't know. I'm willing to give him more of a pass.
All right. I am, and if you see my mouth moving with the mics off, it's because I'm yelling at my kids in the other room. That's how pros do it. Now, actually, pros would not have told you that that's what was going on. This is a hard one because I believe that Deuce Robinson is the most talented of the 3 of these guys. I think that Mike Evans is a potential comp for him, Drake London, those types of players. But he's been making some bad decisions, making a bad decision to play baseball at USC, making a bad decision to transfer to Florida State, and they don't have. Thomas Castellanos I love Thomas Castellanos, but if football is my future, that's not what I'm going to pair my future with. And then Gus Malzahn, I'm not pairing my future if I'm a wide receiver to Gus Malzahn and Thomas Castellanos.
And he's not from the Florida area, right?
He's from Arizona.
Yeah.
I wanted him to go to Arizona State. He could have gone to Arizona State.
They're trying to run it back to Johnny Wilson.
I'm absolutely cutting Deuce Robinson because of the poor decisions that he's making. I think I'm trading these are both coin flips, but I'm going to go ahead and trade Micah Hudson because you all seem to think that he's the best thing since sliced bread. That's fine. Here, give me a second-round draft pick for him. You can have him. And then Barrion Brown, we know that he can do one elite thing in returning the football. Can he develop some other elite traits? Probably not. But we'll see on this wide open LSU team with a gunslinger and Garrett Nussmeier throwing him the ball. So I'll keep Barrion Brown.
Yeah, I'm same as Felix here. I'm cutting Deuce Robinson. I am trading Micah Hudson because I still think he has the value, but I worry about Marcel Reed being his quarterback. I think there's a shot that Miles O'Neill takes over as the quarterback, and if that happens, I think Hudson will rebound some of his value. But if Marcel Reed's the guy, I just don't trust that he's going to be able to throw him the ball, and so I will keep Barrion Brown because I just think if he can get open deep, Garrett Nussmeier will hit him. So that's it.
And I'm going to keep Chris Moxley, Matt Bruening. You know what? I'm trading Austin Nace. Since he's not here, I'm going to trade Austin Nace. I should ask John Arrington. John, give us Andy, and we'll give you Austin. We'll give you Austin. We'll do that trade. All right, that's going to be it for us tonight. Apologies to Kirk Herbstreit. We ran out of time. We'll get him rescheduled soon. For Chris Moxley and Matt Bruening, I'm Felix Sharpe. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody. Good night and good luck.